Hey, Paul, welcome to Vivid Virtual Days.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure to hear and see you today.
So,
This is
great
my
session.
my interview. Yes, this is my interview hat. I show up to all my interviews with a hat like this.
I love it. And I love Captain Mercury. I thought I was the
Oh
only
yeah.
one with the Captain Mercury. I have it on. Oh, you don't see him. He's on top here. But
Uh, this guy's hiding around here too. He likes to
yeah,
hang
he's
around all the
awesome.
time.
All
And
right,
I
Paul.
kill dragons from time to time too. So
That's
that's the best way to show up to an interview is to with a wizard's hat and a dragon shirt.
no doubt. All right, Paul, lots of questions coming in here. First one is actually, Paul, before we get into it, is there anything you want to add before I start jumping into the questions? Because we have a bunch of them. Um,
Well, I guess I'd start off by saying, by the way, I'm unemployed, so I'm actually using this as an opportunity to say, if there's anyone out there who is looking for a really solid UFT and a micro focus tool person, I'm available. And reach out to me. I've got on all social media sources. So out there, generally as the Dark Arts Wizard. So check me out. Um, and I will also mention one other thing. I've been asking a lot of questions about the how to get a hold of a collection of objects using the regular expressions on the height and width.
that was one of
And
my
that's
questions.
really
I'm like, what are your obsession with this? So we need
well.
to
I tell
know.
you what, I have to do a quick shout out to a friend of mine named Don. And Don's always asked me whenever he calls me up. He's done this for 5 years. He's like, "Where's the print inside of UFT?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't. It's on my low list. I'm trying to get this regex thing to go first. I'll get to your thing. But shout out to Don for asking me so many times. The important thing about that question is that I've been. It actually eliminates a few things in my code. It would actually make my framework run faster. So if anyone's watched this video, you saw Renato yesterday. I actually asked him the same question. He said, reach out and put that question in there, and we'll put it on our backlog, and we'll raise it up to the top if enough people ask. So there's 31 people watching, I think, last time I looked. If y'all could just, ping Renato and ask him to raise that thing up, that would be cool. And in return, I will do a really cool demo for Microfocus up on my YouTube channel. So let's continue on. What else we got?
Yeah, so there's actually a print statement in a QTP UFT.
Oh, there's a print statement. My friend's looking for the print, like when you go to under file, print, you want to print your code. I don't
Gotcha.
print my code anymore.
Right.
And he hasn't seen it in 5 years. He says, make sure you ask them, why isn't there a print? I'm like, okay, man, I'll do it.
Cool. All right, Paul, let's get to the questions. First one.
Sure.
Is this technique limited to UFT or lean FT?
Okay. That's a great question. The answer is I found out myself, no. I've been working on this technique for actually 11 years. And in fact, I'm going to say, I think it's even further than that because I found this. I'm not sure if you can, oh my gosh, there's too much light on it.
Oh, Windrunner. I love
It's a Windrunner.
Windrunner.
It's a Windrunner CD. I think I was actually playing around with it back in the day way on that. The answer to the question is that it's not limited to that. It's actually a technique that can be done in other tools. And in fact, I was able to do it in Java on Selenium. And I thought that was pretty cool. The very last slide kind of shows a little bit about that, but I want to keep the focus here on Microfocus on their tool set. It definitely can be done. You certainly saw that it can be done there. And it actually works a little bit easier because Microfocuses, there's tools have more properties that you can actually interact with, and because you have regular expressions in there, you don't have to interact with you don't have to try and figure it out with contains or begins with or ends with. You can actually go and regex some of the text in there to find different matches on that, which I think is really cool. Something that I really love about the UFT tools.
So, Paul, how reliable is this method? So good question.
That's a great question. So the reliability, actually, a lot of people think that it's like there's like 1,000 elements on your screen and you're going to match to any one of them. when you narrow it down by class and by the string that you're looking for, it ends up just being like one or two elements that you're looking for. Another thing that I found is that when I'm doing this is that I do always print out and say, hey, I found a close match. And in some of my demos, I actually show I'm actually highlighting the close matches that appear on the screen. I've done that with images when I'm trying to validate that there's a truck image up on the screen and that there happens to be 2 or 3 images that match. The important thing there is that I always output and say I found multiple ones that are close. And the important thing on that is that sometimes you're creating a framework. I'm sorry, you're creating a web page, and maybe you actually have the same link at the top and the same one at the bottom. And it's a good thing to check and make sure. Okay, make sure that these 2 links, if they've got the same name, they're actually going to the same location. So the reliability on it is pretty good.
Hold on, Paul. Very cool. Okay. So, Paul,
I'll take that. If you're laughing too much at
no,
it,
so this question someone asked is kind of funny. Do you have a copy of Windrunner and 9.2 on CD?
Oh yeah, well mine's 6.0, so there, nice. I'm older.
Yeah. So yeah, next question, valid question is, does this replace the object repository or the page object model?
Cool. So it doesn't replace it. It's actually supposed to leverage it and benefit, make it a little bit more less, take out a lot of the maintenance in there. Obviously, you saw that we had like 50 elements that we had to do maintenance on. We were able to push that off, and it doesn't replace the page object model. It just what I'm looking to do and use it for is to actually enhance the page object model so that if the description you've got in the page object model doesn't, the element can't be found and it changed because of either the class changed, then you could use this as a fallback to say, okay, I can't find this element that we knew that was there in the last release. Let's go see if we can find a different version of that element, and then again report it out in your results and say, okay, I'm failing, but I'm failing because I found this element there. Or you put it out as a warning. I clicked on it; it took me exactly to where I wanted to go. But just to be sure, you should update your page object model because this element isn't being identified anymore in the latest release of your software.
Nice. Next question's from Chris. I don't know why you make me laugh, Paul. Anyway, I think I'm loopy. I'm not used to talking this much. I think I'm losing my senses here. So next question is from Chris. He wants to know, what success have you had with non-automation folks to get them into scripting or contributing to scripting using this model?
I'm going to answer that in 2 ways. One is that, let's see. When I was working, when I actually had that story that I told, the project I was working on, we had 2 guys, and the guy I was working with, a great guy named Raghu. I'm not going to say anything more about it. He was great. I knew him from a project 7 years prior, and boy, I think he was about to cry because he thought, oh my God, 2 days of maintenance. When I showed him what I was able to do and get that whole thing wrapped up in 90 minutes, he was all on board. He's like, he saved me a ton of work, and that's great. When I'm working on projects with other people, there's always other manual testers coming around, kind of looking and saying, What are you doing? How do you make it do that? That's kind of cool. That's kind of neat. I want to know how to do that. And in that case, there's always 2 things. The one, do you know how to write code? And I'll certainly show you how to write this and make this easy. Or on the other hand, I'll design a framework. And you did hear earlier one of the guys talking about Gherkin. Gherkin is a great way to make it easier to write your scripts and do your automation. So when I've had other manual testers around, they come over and say, is that easy enough? Could I do it? And I say, yeah, absolutely. I can show you how to do it. I could bring it either to your level, or I can bring you up to my level, and we can do it. We can do it together. The more the merrier, because the more people you have on the team, the more tests you get to write, the more that you can test deeper, wider. It's always great, and I'm always open to trying to get people interested and working around and playing with automation tools, because in some cases with tools, especially with UFT, it's easy. I know I will say I get teased a little bit. It's like, hey, this guy was working in basic, Visual Basic. How, VB script? I get teased on that, and I tell him, I say, oh, yeah, well, that's great, but I've also made my mortgage payment every single month for the last 14 years working in
Yeah.
basic, so I'm good with that. And my
No
kid's
doubt.
going to college too. He's all set, so it's like, I'm cool. So I think that's the long answer to Chris's question, and it's a great question. Thanks for asking, Chris.
Awesome. And another question Chris has, and I think a lot of people have this as well. Can you discuss in more detail the maintenance cost savings with methods like your magic object model?
Can I discuss in more detail the maintenance cost savings? So, as I said during the demo, the major maintenance that we were doing was that we were facing was it 16 hours worth of work. First of all, trying to identify which 50 elements are not being identified, because there was a lot more than that. The when I implemented it, it basically got down to an hour and a half, because almost every element was identified except for a couple that were just kind of had such a weird tweak to them, and it didn't cost me any additional money. It wouldn't have cost me any more time to try and get that one little element. It was faster for me to just fix it in the maintenance in the object repository. I have to say, just the time savings itself is in that approach speaks for itself. Like I said, we went down from 16 hours of maintenance down to it was 30 minutes, because I wrote the code, and my buddy Raghu, he went and fixed the repository, and then 90 minutes later we were golden. We were ready to go. I hope that kind of answers the question there.
Absolutely. All right. So next question is, all right. So with UFT 15 introducing AI codeless testing tools, do you need to solve more complex fuzzy matching problems?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question, because I recorded that demo on the previous version. I will tell you that I do have a copy of UFT 15.0. I've been playing with it. My test scripts actually load up and work and work fantastically. So I'm happy about it. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to play around with some of the new features that are in there. But they do have a couple of cool things. I mean, aside from the one I'm trying to look for, they've updated their data table. So I know that's been a question for a long time, is like, can you add all the new features that Excel has so that I can use them in the data table? Because we know it looks like Excel. It's kind of bringing it in. That's cool. They have that RPA component, which kind of sounds like a presentation that I did about in 2009. I was sitting in a room. I was like, "This sounds familiar. I think I demoed this at HP Discover back in 2009." But cool. Where's my paycheck? No, never mind. Don't worry about it. And of course, the other thing is that they have API testing. The tool is great because it covers so many different platforms. I mean, it does API. It covers. It can automate web, of course, .NET. If you're automating an application on the desktop, it does that. If you're looking to work with SAP, that it does that. And if one of the other things I always mention to people, and usually the new people are like, "Why would you ever want to work with a terminal emulator?" I'm like, "Don't you have a mainframe?" Like, well, yeah, but are we going to automate that? Yes, you are. You're going to definitely do it. And I'll say one other new thing that I have not had a chance to play around, because like I said, the release was just a few days ago. They've got a Hyper-V virtual hard disk version of UFT that you can spin up. And I'm going to go play with that. It's probably going to be my next video when I get it up and running and get to play around with it, because I actually have a machine that I specifically got for doing virtual machines. And I just recently upgraded it. Went from 16 to 32 gig of memory inside of it, and a full SSD drive, and that should be enough to handle just about anything in virtualization I can throw at it. What was the question again? I think I got it. I think I
You got
answered
it.
it. I just gave too much info there.
No.
Go ahead. What else we got?
All right. Next one is how can this accurately replace? How can this actually accurately find a replacement object when there's maybe 100 of similar elements in the DOM?
Oh, that's I think I actually answered that a little bit earlier on. But the same thing is that when you're looking for a particular element to exist, there's basically just three things that we're looking for, and you're looking for the class. So not everything is a link. You narrow it down. There may be hundreds of elements on your page, but maybe only 15 of them are links. All right, and maybe 5 of those links are visible. And of those 5, and maybe 2 of them may have the text inside of it that you've got. So you actually narrow it down. You might have thousands of elements on your DOM, but you can easily narrow it down to just 1 or 2 elements that are the ones that you're looking for. And in my experience, it was like about 90% of them, it was just one match. It was always just a unique match for an element to find it and replace it and get it.
All right, Paul, another question someone submitted is, what if some elements find a class match and others don't?
Ooh. Some find it and some don't. Okay. So in that case, what you're looking at is that not every element has a XPath that is exactly the same. So what you can do there is you can actually go and put together a couple of different ways of finding the element in the same way. So if you were to do an XPath that says, I need to find this by, see if I can find the string I'm looking for in the ID. I didn't find anything, then let's try and look for an ID in the text or in the inner text. And if I didn't find anything that way, go find it through the outer text, see if I can match like that. Do 2 or 3 attempts at it to find the description that's going to match. And that's going to increase the chances that you're actually going to find a replacement element for the one that basically just can't be found anymore.
Paul, another question is, let's bring this up. Why is the .exist method set to 0 seconds? Won't that result in missing elements if Ajax is still updating the web page?
Oh yeah, good catch on that. I did actually put that session together at the very end where we talked about the sandwich sync, where we do a synchronization and then we find our element and then we do a synchronization. And I did kind of mention that what it ends up being is that when you do a click on something, you end up doing 2 synchronizations. So if Ajax is actually still building the page, you're doing a sync and another sync, and there's a really good chance that if Ajax is still building your page, you're spending your time getting that. However, and it makes it less likely that you're not going to find the element. However, that's not exactly foolproof. So I'm going to give you a second second way that you can do this. And I hate to say it, I have a joke that I say, I don't use wait statements in my code. I'm sorry, I've screwed it up. Bad joke. I had to practice this more. I don't always use wait statements in my code, but when I do, they're less than a second. So in this case, what you could do is you could go and grab a collection of all the elements that are on the page. Let's say it comes back and says there's 355. And you wait, all right, so it's a hard code to wait. Just wait a quarter of a second. And then you do that count again. Give me back how many elements are on the page. 355 again. Okay, cool. You do it a third time. If you get the same number of elements 3 times in a row, more likely in 3/4 of a second, Ajax is done building. If you get a different number of count, means Ajax has been building stuff up, and you restart the count again. So the worst case scenario is that, or the best case scenario is that, first of all, the element existed right off the bat. It was there. Great. It's not even a quarter second wait. You're on and going. If it wasn't there in the first shot, the next best case scenario is you're waiting 3/4 of a second, and that's actually rather short. And you check it again, you find your element, and the page has been built. That's great. You move on. The third case is if if the first one and the second one didn't match, you restart again. So you're waiting a second and a quarter, and basically you're handling dynamically that page build that that Ajax is doing for you, or is doing in the background, and you're able to dynamically have a nice dynamic wait time. Now, I would guess, and I'm not the only one to come up with that idea. I have no idea how synchronization works behind Micro Focus's tools. I'll try to stop hitting my microphone. I'm sorry. I don't know how they do it behind the scenes, because they actually have a really smart way of handling it that does seem to work extremely well. And I don't know how Selenium handles it in the background. They also have very smart ways of handling it. But I'm sure it's probably either something very close or completely different from what I'm describing.